Well, howdy ho there, folks. How are we doing today? Hopefully you're all doing absolutely peachy keen fantastic, full of the love of the Lord and all that good stuff. Today I'm going to be playing a little bit of Overwatch, or well, I'm going to be talking over some footage I've already recorded of Overwatch, because man, when I actually play and record at the same time, or we'll play and talk at the same time, I get like really easily distracted. Oh yeah, like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful one. And you know, today I was going to talk a little bit about how we want to kind of control our minds a little bit, and we want to understand that our minds can be both our best friend but also like one of our worst enemies if we don't do it correctly, or if we're not paying attention. And I also just thought it'd be fun to, you know, kind of play some Overwatch and show you some of my cool plays. I did edit down the footage a bit more because on my other video, there was a couple people saying that like, oh well, you did bad at first because you ran in there and died, and I was like, yeah, well, yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes I'm just running around trying to have a nice time, you know. And but I understand, so I was like, okay, we'll play and get some cool footage. We'll play some cool Venture footage, which also I really like this Venture skin because like, look, it's like the nice orange and blue together, and I think that actually looks really good. It's actually also kind of cool there because like if you look here, I got that Sojourn right at the same time that she got me. And that's a lot of fun. But you know, hey, sometimes that just is the way the game plays. And I'm going to read a little bit here from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. We're just going to go through a couple of verses here that I think are pretty interesting. And we're going to start here, chapter 6, verse 3. To the soul who's aspiring for perfection in yoga, work without attachment is said to be the means. To the sage who is already elevated in yoga, tranquility and meditation is said to be the means. When one is neither attached to the senses nor to action, such a person is said to be elevated in the science of yoga, having renounced all desires for the fruits of actions. Elevate yourself through the power of your mind and not degrade yourself, for the mind can be the friend and also the enemy of the self. For those who have conquered the mind, it is their friend. For those who have failed to do so, the mind works like an enemy. And you know, it's one of those really interesting things going through, and I was thinking about this, is that if you have done the right things and gotten some discipline in your mind and are trying to, like, you know, do the right thing, it can remind you, for instance, like, oh, well, you know, and this is just an example because we're watching Overwatch footage, is like, oh man, that person killed me. And, you know, like, if your mind is not disciplined, what can happen is you can get angry and you can be like, wow, I can't believe that person got me. They shouldn't have got me. I'm so much better. Oh man. Or you know, you can also go into the other direction where it's like, oh man, I suck. I can't believe I let myself die there. Oh man, I'm so terrible. I'll never get better. And you know, the mind has this tendency to constantly fuel thoughts, because thoughts will just keep coming and coming and coming, right? Because the thoughts are just kind of like this natural thing. They just sort of populate. If you sit there and you watch the mind, what you're going to see is that the mind will just generate thoughts. You don't have to even be trying, and you can even try not to think. You can be sitting there in meditation, and you'll just find that your brain will just keep coming back and back and back to certain things, and will make it so that you can't really like focus on the things you want to focus on. You're just trying to focus on the breath, and this is like your mind's like, oh man, did I do that thing earlier? Oh man, when I talked to that girl earlier, I can't believe, you know, I said that thing. Oh man, I bet she hates me, or you know, whatever stupid thought will come to your mind. I'm trying to think of stuff that like comes to most people's minds, because for me, most of the time now, my brain just goes, oh man, I love God. God's really cool. What if we made a video about that? Or so there we go. Hey, you know what's really awesome? Warhammer. Warhammer's really awesome. We should like. I'll be sitting there trying to meditate sometimes, and I've gotten a lot better about it over the years. But occasionally, my mind will just be like, you know, it'd be a really cool backstory for like a Warhammer warband. We should go like with this backstory, and we should add this element, and we should do this, you know, and stuff like that. But instead of like instead of focusing on the breath like we're supposed to be, it's like I keep thinking about like something neat in Warhammer, or I'll think about like oh, you know, that would be really fun skin to wear in like Overwatch or something silly like that. Or sometimes I'll be playing a game and like Tracer will run by and I'll go, oh hey, Tracer has a nice butt, but that's not really something you should be thinking about all the time. You know, like if it pops into your head occasionally, that's not like a huge deal or anything like that, but that shouldn't be the main focus. of what you're thinking about. And that's one of the reasons the Sri Krishna here is telling us that you should really try to that you should be trying to control the mind, and that to the person who has controlled the mind and has discipline, the mind can be their friend, because the mind can actually direct you as you're going throughout your day back to the righteous thing and back to the good thing. Where it'll say, oh, where, you know, like if you're going throughout your day and like maybe you're starting to get a little upsetty spaghetti because you're in like a lot of like annoying traffic or something like that, and what you can end up doing if you have better focus is that you can have your mind redirect you to, you know, focusing on the Lord and focusing on getting getting your mind in the right place and getting your thoughts in the right place, so that you're always focusing on God and always focusing on that which is much more important, you know, instead of like these things that sort of show up and, you know, distract you. Like when you get angry, you can actually have your mind go, you can notice that in your mind, like, oh, I'm getting angry. And instead of fueling the anger, you can, you know, say, hey, I'm getting angry. You can notice it, and you can bring your mind back to peaceful thoughts and bring your mind back to positivity, and trying to do that sort of thing. And you can also use your mind as a tool, because you can say, oh, hey, there's a lot of negativity in my mind right now, and or there's a lot of negativity that keeps coming to me right now. And if your mind is trained, you can notice that negativity, and instead of focusing on the negativity specifically, what you can start focusing on is the desire to get back and focus on the good things, and get back and focus on the things that are, you know, more important. Like, you know, maybe it's your meditation, or maybe it's just something as simple as like you're talking to someone and your mind starts to drift away and go another place. But you can actually use the mind to tame the mind and bring the mind back to focusing on what the person is saying, making sure that you're hearing the person that's talking to you, and making sure that you're interacting in a positive way to the people that are talking around you, and things like that. Making sure that you come back to the present moment and, you know, really embrace that. But that's one of the things that you should always be trying to come back to, is always try to make sure that you're doing the right thing, and making sure that you're doing the thing that is focused in the right direction. Because, you know, it can be pretty easy to have your mind focus on things that are not important. But the same way that the mind can be your friend when you have it correctly, there is also this whole thing of like, well, the mind will get distracted, the mind will bring up things, the mind will, you know, maybe you're talking to a really pretty lady, if you're into ladies, and instead of, you know, thinking about, you know, oh, hey, I'd really like to get to know this lady better, and, you know, maybe something could happen, you know, if you're really attracted to them. Instead of thinking about that, you're like, oh, man, she's just so hot, man, I want to do stuff to her in a romantic type sex way. And instead of, you know, thinking about, you know, the positive connotations there, and thinking about the shared humanity there, and also, you know, giving the person respect. Because that's another thing, is that your mind can throw you off, and your mind can also be the one that's focusing on like people being like bad to you, or it can really focus on like, oh, I'm not doing things the way I should be doing, and like the mind can really boil you down. Because what happens is, if you feed those thoughts, if you feed the thoughts that are negative, because the mind will just keep going, and it will latch on to whatever if you let it. You can sit there and you can keep thinking about how, you know, you need to be doing this thing instead of that thing, and or you can sit there and kind of have like these negative moments where you're oh man, I didn't do anything productive today, and like that one thought, which will maybe come to you one way or the other. But if you focus on that thought and you keep feeding it, and you keep thinking, oh man, I didn't do what I was supposed to do today, and then next thing you know, you're just constantly sitting there thinking, oh man, I should have done more today, I was ineffective today, oh, I didn't bring what I was supposed to bring today, I'm not being as you know, loving as I should be, or you know, I'm like such a bastard, I can't believe I let my mind focus on this instead of, you know, focus somewhere where I was supposed to have it focus. And because I was not doing the right thing, like, oh, now you because you started with this one little thought, now you fueled these ideas of hatred, and you fueled these ideas of like, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, oh, I'm, you know, so miserable, and I can't, you know, I can't do anything right. Because by feeding the negative thoughts and giving them more sustenance to grow, and giving them more sustenance to kind of go into like areas where you shouldn't let it go, you can really have your mind fuel the negativity. And by fueling the negative parts of your mind, when you're not disciplined in controlling your mind, that's when you really let a lot of that negativity kind of overgrow and kind of keep coming back. And the next thing you know, it's like you're finding that your thoughts are always going to like these negative things that you shouldn't be having them go towards. And what you should really be focusing on more and more is the ability of yourself to dwell on the present moment. And you know, you should be when you find those negative thoughts, what you should do is, it's much better to let the thought be, notice that the thought is there, and let it come and go. A way as Zen master I like, is it Nishijima Roshi? It's not Nishijima Roshi, it's I can't remember which Roshi it is in particular, forgive me. But one of the ways, a phrase that I really like that's kind of related to this is that, you know, let the thoughts, leave the front door and the back door open, and your thoughts will come and go. Just don't serve them tea. Don't, you know, sit there and like focus on them and make them like the whole thing. Don't make them, you know, like feel too welcome. Don't dwell on them, but in fact, instead, go through and be willing to examine them for what they are, examine them for what they where they're coming from, and how they, you know, kind of exist within your mind. But don't focus on them in the way that it's like, okay, so this is where this thought comes from, and this is what I am, you know, related to, and oh, this is how I have to think, and oh, because I've had this thought, you know, that's kind of the problem with all these thoughts, right? Is that they start chains. They don't just have. It's not normally like a thought is just a one thought. If you focus on it, because what happens is thoughts will just come and go throughout the day, no matter what you're doing. You know, this is just part of what the mind does. The mind generates thoughts that go one way or the other, whatever. And, you know, they can have all kinds of contexts and all kinds of ways they exist and interact with you, and are, as they are around you. Sometimes you're just gonna have these moments of difficulty, but you don't necessarily have to stop the thoughts. You just observe them, observe that they're there, observe that, you know, this is the thing that's coming to you. And part of it is that once you realize that you don't have to latch on to every thought that comes into your head, and that you don't own these thoughts, you do not possess these thoughts, they'll come and go a lot more easily. So as time goes on, what you really want to try to do is, you know, don't lay claim to your thoughts. Don't be like, this is my thought. This is the thing that came to my head. This is the thing that is so important to me because I generated it. You'll find that the thoughts will just come and go no matter what you're doing. And if you're truly the one generating the thoughts, one would think you would have a certain amount of control over them, but you really don't. They'll just kind of come and go. And what you really got to do is, since you are trying to let them come and go and trying to let them do their own, you know, thing, sometimes you're just going to have to you know, let them go through your head, and just don't force them to become the center of your existence. Don't force them to become, like, you know, what you're aspiring to, what you're trying to like focus on or anything like that, because the simple truth is that these thoughts come and go, and that you are going to have them one way or the other. So what you need to do instead is let yourself experience these thoughts, let yourself have these moments, but don't blame yourself for having these moments. Don't you know, treat the thoughts as positive or negative. That's another thing that's really important, is don't focus on the thought as like, oh, this is a negative thought, this is a bad thought. It's like, no, they're just thoughts. We are the ones that ascribe meaning and things to these on a deeper level. But what we should do instead is, you know, just experience the thoughts, let them come and go. But that's really one of the big things here, and that's also part of what I think is an important verse here, which is the 7th verse, which is, the yogis have conquered the mind, right? The yogis who have conquered the mind rise above the dualities of cold and heat, joy and sorrow, and honor and dishonor. Such yogis remain peaceful and steadfast in their devotion to God. Remain peaceful and steadfast in your devotion to God. Remain in that peaceful moment. Remain in that moment which gives you joy. Don't let your thoughts control you. Don't let your thoughts, you know, generate and turn into these things which are you know, positive or negative. If you can, you can turn some of these thoughts and try to bring them into a more positive light, but sometimes the best thing to do is to simply, you know, let them be experienced, let them exist in the present moment wherever they are, and try to, you know, let them be as they are, and, you know, don't fret overly much about them one way or the other. Know what I mean, Jimmy Dean? I think that's like some of the best stuff that you can actually do, and some of the most important things for someone who's trying to be, you know, a better person and a more spiritual person and a happier person. And, you know, even if you're not necessarily doing it for spiritual reasons, it's still a very important practice to let these things come and go. And yeah, that's just what I wanted to share today, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the footage and enjoyed listening to me ramble on about this. And yeah, this is something that I think is pretty important for us to learn as we get older, especially. And I just wanted you all to know that, you know, there's always areas that we can improve on, and we can always become better and become more willing to embrace what we are. Okie dokie? Okie dokie. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope that you all have an absolute excuse me. I hope that you all have an absolutely amazing day, and I hope that you know that I love you and God loves you, and bye-bye, love you, bye. Have an absolutely great one. Bye-bye, love you, bye. Bye, love you, bye. Wait, where is it? There we go. Waving now. Bye, love you, bye. Also, check this out, dude. It's pretty sick. It's a Bastion doing a little dance. Wow. Okay, bye, love you, bye. God loves you, bye, bye, bye. I love you, bye, 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 love you, bye, bye. Bye.